Our first guest knows a thing or two about all of these matters. He's Dr. Michael Scheuer. He's an ex-CIA operations officer who was only on the case of Osama bin Laden for some years. His outspoken criticisms of Israel saw him get into trouble with the CIA, so he very honorably resigned, and he's been telling the truth ever since. Dr. Michael, welcome for the first time to the mother of all talk shows. I don't know if you heard my monologue, but I was opining. Thank you. I was opining that the sneak attack on the Iranian frigate off the coast of India just a few hours ago, and boasted about already by the Eastern Command of the American Navy and by the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, marks a significant development in the war, both territorially and materially in many ways, not to mention morally. What's your take on that?
Oh, I think it's a sign of panic. They found a target they could hit, and they hit it, and now they're going to cheer about it. But it only takes us deeper into an abyss that we're already hip deep in. So it's a ridiculous situation to be in, all in the name of a country that's worthless. And we've been doing this now for half a century, and we finally got caught short here. The Iranians are well armed. What has struck me the most about all of this is the absolute ignorance of knowing anything about the Iranian people, how they respond to things. They've been there for 47 or 49 years now, and we've never once seen them run from trouble. Those of us old enough to remember the war between Iran and Iraq, they were extraordinarily brave people, extraordinarily willing to risk their lives for their country, and none of that seems to register in the United States because we take our orders from the Israelis. And as long as that continues, the blood of Americans will be lost for absolutely nothing.
There is a complete collapse of historical knowledge in policymakers all over the Western world, not just in your country, but in mine. The British Foreign Office, once the repository of vast treasure trove of knowledge about the region and its peoples, is now run by teenage scribblers who are friends of Israel of one kind or another. And it shows, doesn't it? It shows when American military commanders can actually lecture their forces before going into battle that this was a war to bring about Armageddon and the return of Jesus to the world, and that Jesus had anointed Donald Trump to spark that process. And at least a dozen commanders did that. There's been at least 200 complaints from the soldiers, but the American administration is doubling down on it. Mike Johnson just described the religion of Islam as a mistaken religion, as a misguided religion. Now, whether you think it is or it isn't, there's quite a lot of them. There's 2 billion of them. It doesn't really make sense to maximize the number of people ready to harm you, does it?
No, it doesn't. And I think people should understand that we are governed by people who know nothing about the world and nothing about their own country. Trump for example, had no power, no constitutional power to declare war on anybody. And then the fellow you just spoke of in the Congress said, oh, no, it was fine. The president can declare war. No, it's not fine. The Constitution forbids anybody but the 2 houses of Congress by majority declaring war. And this is the kind of war we fought since 1945. None of our wars have been constitutional since 1945. And I think it's not unlikely that related to that, we haven't won a war since 1945. Going into a war with a country that is so clearly technically advanced compared to what we believe it is, and has friends who are very powerful, is just a piece of idiocy. It's a self-imposed wound. Going into this and expecting to win it is madness. Unless they're going to put 150, 200,000 troops on the ground, I don't think so. And if they did, they're going to be lucky if they get half of them back alive.
Well, as in your time in the CIA, and it was a significant amount of time, and at the very highest level on the most important missions, you got to know your colleagues very well. Do you think anybody in the intelligence community has conveyed what you've just said to their political masters and been ignored, or has the same degradation of caliber, quality, taken place in the CIA?
Oh, I think it's been forced on the CIA, George. It was forced on the CIA by John Brennan. The CIA is now the workshop or the Broadway show of DEI, and which makes it a less effective organization, a less smart organization, and a less patriotic organization. It's a shame to say that, because it was once a very powerful instrument for American security. But now, if you speak up on something like this, you're going to be you're not going to be fired, you will be exiled to some really uninteresting work or place. And so I wouldn't expect any strong opposition from within the agency, even knowing the fact that the Iranians were more than a match for whatever we can put forward. And I think you have to remember, too, that American children, and I'm really not sure if it still continues, but when I was a boy, when I was in the 7th or 8th grade, 6th or 7th or 8th grade, every year we would have to go into an auditorium and watch films about the Holocaust. And we got drilled into that, what a terrible thing it was. And it was a terrible thing. But it was also a two-fisted punch. You'd get punched with the sight of the dead people, but you'd also say, we can never let this happen again. Well, what we found out is that never again means never again only pertinent to Israel. It's okay if the Israelis wipe out Palestinians. It's okay if they wipe out Iranians. It's okay. It's only a one-way track. And Americans, unfortunately, believe in that. And we have 20 million, something like that, evangelicals who think that their future happiness in the land beyond belongs to saving the Israelis. Saving them for what? To kill more Iranians, to kill more Palestinians. It's a madness. And I don't know how to stop it.
Well, it's a peculiar, it certainly wasn't in my Bible, and it's certainly not my understanding of the message of Jesus. But we're told that Jesus has anointed Donald Trump. There's supposed to be a separation between church and state in the United States. It isn't half being blurred now, is it?
It is being blurred. It is being the effort within the United States by several organizations, not least of all IPAC and the other Israeli billionaires, is to denigrate Christianity and to make it a less powerful voice. The voice of the evangelicals is a voice of terror. It's a voice of subservience to another country. It's a voice of treason. And what we can do about that, I don't know. But it's crossed right into the government. Well,
on the good, the good news, Doctor, is that in polling this week, for the very first time, more Americans sympathized with the Palestinian cause than with the Israeli cause. So I think that there's a lot of strength in the argument that Netanyahu knew this was his last window to do this. And Donald Trump knows that with the imminence of the loss of power in November, almost certainly, that it was his last chance to do it also. And we're marching to the tune of people who deliberately chose that date, Saturday, as the commemoration of Purim, a Jewish religious festival which celebrates the Jews killing 75,000 Iranians. 75,000.
Yes.
Are we going to will this war continue until it's 75,000? Or do you think there's any chance that it will stop before that?
Well, I hope there's a chance, sir, but I doubt it. I think they're in for the long haul, and they're going to run up against the wall where the only thing they can do, the ships won't work, the airships won't work, the attacks from the air won't work. They're going to have to land troops, and the Iranians will chew us up. It's a big country. It's a mountainous country. The one thing that Americans have squandered is the fact that they have the two greatest allies on this earth, and they're called Pacific and Atlantic. There's no one that's going to come here and invade us. If we stay home, we stay home, and we should stay home. And we've lost the idea of leaving well enough alone, leaving people to make up their own decisions on how to live. Let them fight each other if they want. It's no skin off of our nose. The Israelis clearly can't defend themselves without us. And we have clearly no interest in their surviving if it engages us in wars that we always lose. We certainly don't have any interest in engaging the Israelis if they're billionaires in this country fund the Congress. It's kind of the only Congress, I think, in the world of 525 people, every one of whom except one are on the payroll of the Israelis, and they're proud to talk about it. There's such a vast cleanup needed in the United States, not only in the way of thinking, but in terms of perceiving what the United States is about. We've lost that entirely. And until that comes back about, we're going to be the warmongeringest of people in the world. It's a very, very difficult situation for Americans. And I think
what does the long haul look like, Doctor? I mean, the never too stable regimes in the area, the Gulf Arab states, are suffering enormous economic losses. Enormous, truly enormous. I mean, the UAE alone is reportedly losing $1 million per minute that the Dubai airport is closed. The Bahrain regime, probably the most unstable regime in the region, the most unpopular, held in bondage, must be in danger of being swept away. The economies of the Western countries are going to be wrecked. If there's no oil, no gas, no Red Sea, no Suez Canal, no Straits of Hormuz, how do you sustain that for the long haul?
Well, of course you can't, George. You're exactly right. You can't sustain that. You have to stop and you have to see if you can rebuild it. I think it's a long way from rebuilding. And I think the other problem we have is wouldn't it be a great achievement if the United States was the force that united, at least in terms of fighting together, Sunnis and Shias? Because this is just a war to kill Muslims. The Israelis really don't care what kind of Muslim you kill him, and as long as he's dead. And I think the United States, sadly, is getting to be in a position where they could be accused of that. Like you said, briefing your troops or your crews about the necessity of Israel winning so we can all be whatever we're supposed to be is a madness. Those people should be relieved from command, not just because they're commanders and that's not their responsibility, or because of the separation of church and state, but there's probably very few people in the American Army, Navy, Air Force, or Marine Corps who joined up to risk their lives for Israel. There's probably a few. There's some evangelicals there. But I mean, America has to begin to look out for itself. We have had 30 wars since 1945. We've lost every one. And still we strut around like it was 1945. And I think really England, much of Europe, and the United States are all choking to death on the cult of World War II. We still think we just got to run up our carriers to somewhere in the Pacific or somewhere against the Germans or whatever. And we forget about what a tough struggle that was. It was a terrible war. But now we seem to think that it's just a matter of showing up and everybody will surrender. Well, that's not the case. Look at how we've just been. Yeah, I was just going to say, sir, how ignorant we have been of the Muslim world and the advances it has made in the last 10 years, 20 years in technology. And now we're seeing it in Iran. They're not what they used to use abusive terms about them, sand warriors or whatever it was. And now they're sharp people. And, just from your everyday life, if you meet Iranians in the street or if you meet them as a friend, they're very sharp people. They're not fools and they're not cowards. But to listen to the American government, under this government, under Biden, under most governments in the last 30 years, you're going to think they're just desert watchers.
Absolutely. Now, what's your belief about the level of American casualties? It seems to me fantastically incredible, literally incredible, that in all of this damage that has been done to American embassies, CIA stations, military bases, and the rest, that the Americans have lost only 4 dead. I think it is exponentially larger than that. If you do,
I would be shocked if it wasn't
say how they're going to hide that.
Well, how many Americans have gotten killed fighting in the war in Ukraine? Special services, seconded officers to there. I'm sure we've lost hundreds of people, and we haven't admitted one casualty in the Ukraine. They'll try to hide these, but as you say, just from watching what's going on and seeing the films of it, it's very hard to believe that 4 is the number. I don't know how the number is, but it's got to be many multiples of that, I would think. The other thing that strikes me...
Well, the Iranians claim 800, and they haven't been found out lying about the war so far. And of course, we've been through all this in Gaza. All this deliberate obfuscation of numbers and false attribution of lying about the scale of the killing and so on. And on the subject of films, the mass media and now social media, anyone watching social media today will find virtually no fresh footage of the pounding by 50 ballistic missiles that Tel Aviv and Haifa took just yesterday. My friends in Israel tell me that parts of Tel Aviv now look like Gaza, and they should know. It's likely that the scale of loss in Israel is also exponentially higher than they have admitted.
I think what goes around comes around, sir. And we're finding that out. It also strikes me, when they first said there was 3 or 6 Americans dead, and what a terrible thing. And anybody who goes to war and then whines about 4 casualties is not a person to be in charge of a war, in the sense that people get killed. And if you don't expect to see them get killed, then you should not be responsible for sending them. If casualties are an essential part, sadly, of any war. And for some reason, we think we're going to fight without casualties or with very few. And it's happened in a couple places. But nonetheless, I would agree with you that with what I've seen on audio or on the video and listened to, if there's only 4 or 6 dead Americans, it would be an extraordinary thing after the kinds of fighting we've seen.
Indeed. Now, because I've got you on, it's a bit left field this, forgive me if it's in any way improper, but as you were involved in hunting bin Laden, this is the day on which Candace Owens explicitly stated that Israel brought down the Twin Towers, which doesn't mean that bin Laden wasn't involved, because bin Laden might have been working for Israel. Now, I would not, once upon a time, and not that long ago, I would never have uttered that sentence. I spent years on radio and TV ridiculing people who thought that way. But the way things have developed in the world, do you think it was bin Laden, the man you were looking for?
Well, the man we have found, sir. And that's the important thing to remember when you discuss 9/11, is that bin Laden survived to operate and do the job if he was the one who did it. And I thought he was for a long time. Now I have questions of whether he did it by himself or not. But Clinton and George Bush had 10 opportunities to kill him, and they refused to do it. Intelligence isn't good enough. No, it's just not the time. It would hurt the stock market. But it seems now that there's reason to think that they wanted him alive, and that is really something that bothers me deeply. And really, I'm averse to believing it, but I'm beginning to think that there's something going on, or something that went on that I didn't know about. Maybe I should have. But to reject the opportunity to 10 different times to kill a man or capture him, and letting it go, and then seeing 9/11 occur, it's almost like they were waiting for 9/11 to occur, isn't it?
Almost like they were waiting for 9/11 to occur. Sir, you're an officer and a gentleman. It's the first time we've had the pleasure of seeing you. I hope it's not the last. Dr. Michael Scheuer, thank you very much for joining us on the mother of all talk shows.